What's up? What's up, guys? It is Sleeve from Crimson Media Radio on a Sunday. Thanks for tuning in at 6 p.m. sharp, just like I promised. This is Crimson Media Radio, where we play local bands all the time, and it's not just local to the Los Angeles or Southern California area. I would like to remind everyone, this is local music from every town across the world. I've gotten music from London, I've gotten music from now New Zealand. We have tracks literally everywhere, so thank you so much for submitting to this community and deciding to be a part of it. I really appreciate it, you guys. The community here at Crimson Media has grown quite a bit as a result of all the independent music that's been submitted. Couldn't have done it without you guys, so thank you very much. Once again, my name is Sleeve, and if you guys ever want to check out the Crimson Media Twitter and add to the chatter, here is our Twitter handle right here, Crimson Media Entertainment, at Crimson Media ENT. Go ahead and check that out if you're in a band, and go ahead and tweet us. We will retweet you, whatever we're doing in the 21st century here. These kids these days with their hashtags, their tweets, their retweets. But I'm telling you, every time that your band gets retweeted, every time that you are mentioned on the internet, it helps the SEO for your overall project, the search engine optimization. So it's good to talk about each other. So I always recommend it at the beginning of the show. Please check it out. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and start the show off with the news, but I wanted to mention that we have an interview today with Shawn Sullivan. He is the chief editor and owner of World Class Audio. We actually did that interview on Wednesday. Shawn had a little bit more time then, so you'll notice two things when I put on the interview. A is the fact that I'm wearing a different shirt. I decided to rock Mike Myers today. And B, I have a different haircut because I just got my hair trimmed recently. So you're going to notice I look slightly different in that interview. That's what 4 days' time will do. So let's go ahead and move on to the news first and foremost. We are going to start this week off with some slightly tragic news because the world has been a slightly tragic place. Over in Syria, there was a bombing, and it's been continuing. U.S. airstrikes over there, and actually, Syria is continuing to bomb the rebels themselves. So it's been a pretty bleak scene over there, to say the very, very least. We definitely are going to hope that this turns out for the best, but I know this is a conflicted, people are going to have conflicting opinions on this subject, but I'm just going to say, I hope that we don't have to go for regime change. I hope we don't drop too many more bombs. I really hope that I hope this doesn't last. Personally, I'm never a big fan of military intervention, but, they're saying that they gassed their people. I mean, that's up to you guys. There have been some rumors it could have been the rebels. There's some rumors it could have been Assad, but they're saying, why would it have been Assad if he was in that good of a place in the world stage? He actually had more support right now than he had in a long time. The Russians supported him. The United States said that it was pretty much a non-priority to go after Assad right now after the whole red line thing in the Obama administration. Right now at this point, so they're saying it's Assad. I personally am skeptical, but, they're going ahead with the military operation, so let's just hope that this is clean, and let's hope not too many civilians die this time. So I just wanted to start with that because that's the depressing news of the week, and it's kind of weird to jump ahead to news that isn't quite as depressing after that. But we have to get rid of the tough topics of the week. By the way, I sound pretty froggy this week. You might notice from previous weeks I was getting a little bit of a sore throat. Now I'm getting over a sore throat. So now I sound like I've got something inhabited in my got like a frog living in there. Hopefully I'll be back next week with my voice in full effect. Next on the list, the band The Butcher Babies, who I sometimes talk about because they're pretty big here in Los Angeles, they just got a new drummer, and he's actually one of my good friends. Chase Brickenden is now playing drums for the band, and Chase is a really good guy. He's a great drummer, and we used to go to Musicians Institute together, so Chase is really a solid pick for the group. He's learning all the tracks right now, and he's actually going to be on the show. We thought he was going to be on this month, but he's going to be on next month. Chase is actually finishing the tracks with them right now, so when he's done, he's going to be able to share that with us, and he's also going to bring by his electronic drum kit, which he said he commissioned out. He's going to play us a drum solo, so I can't wait for that. And good luck, Chase. I hope that you kill that record. I know you will. Last but not least, just as a friendly reminder for everybody who lives in the Los Angeles area, if you're looking for something to do this 420, woo, We have a awesome concert that's coming up. Snoop Dogg is actually playing concerts at the Greek Amphitheater for 420. So that's going to be an interesting high time, shall we say. Yeah, it's going to be a good show, and he's playing with Wiz Khalifa. So if you're looking for a little bit of a party, I think that sounds like a good time. Check it out. That is the news for this week, and we're going to keep things trucking. The topic of the hour is, of course, recording, and we're going to talk about recording techniques throughout this show, and we're going to have the interview with Shawn coming up in just a little bit. But first and foremost, we'd like to thank every band who submitted their music here. I'm just going to take a look at the list really quickly just to make sure that I didn't miss anybody. Looks like we have the Short-Necked Giraffes from Rancho Cucamonga. We have a lovely lady from Los Angeles named Serena Foster, who's done a song called In the Night. And last but not least, there's Echo Muse from Utah. Now, when I say last but not least, I just mean that those are the bands that submitted to me. We also have 3 tracks that Shawn gave me that he's working on in his studio. Those bands are actually great as well. And if you are taking a look at it, we have Ravencroft, we have Naked and Unashamed, and then we have this band, the last one, Fairnox or whatever. I always mispronounce them. They're from New Zealand. I'm going to say the name proper later in the show, I promise. I hashtag them as well, but that's the only band name that I have always consistently forgotten. So yeah, they're from New Zealand. They kick ass. I promise you that. So yeah, all these artists contributed their music. They're all great. And we're going to start the show off with a music video that I found for the Short-Necked Giraffes that I loved. And I hope that you guys love too. This one right here is a cover song for the Ghostbusters theme. They are a ska band actually, and they worked with Shawn Sullivan too. So the Short-Necked Giraffes are a band who are, doing their recordings with Shawn, and they actually have a pretty extensive following, it looks like. So they did cover the Ghostbusters theme, and they did a music video that goes with it. That's right, you're about to see some funny shit. So check this out. Here is the Short-Necked Giraffes from Rancho Cucamonga here on Crimson Media Radio. Busted. Busted. Oh my god, that is a great video, guys. That's very creative. I loved all the stuff that you did with it. I'm a huge fan of bands like Real Big Fish, and I used to listen to bands like Less Than Jake and things like that when I was growing up. So that really brought me back. That felt like I was just watching, like the Sellout video, like all over again. Awesome, guys. Really great song. Thank you for submitting that. That was the Short Neff Drax from Rancho Cucamonga. They are tagged on our website and on the Facebook, so please like their page and keep on following their music. They would much appreciate it, I'm sure. We're going to keep on moving. Shawn Sullivan is coming up later in the show, and he is the chief engineer of World Class Audio, and he has a really cool story about how he put it together. He made his own music business out of, pretty much like a undisclosed location that was very impressive. He turned a metal box into an entire recording world. It's very cool. And Shawn is definitely somebody who I would consider a veteran audio engineer. Shawn's been in the game for a little while. I have been audio engineering myself for probably about 12, 15 years now, but Shawn has about like 15 extra years of experience on even me. So this guy is like one of the few people who I met in the entertainment industry. Back when I was recording, I really had a pretty good sense of how to do recording, but Shawn was the one who kind of expanded my mind on how this whole game can really work. Shawn was the first guy who showed me how to do new techniques. He taught me how to quantize better. He taught me how to melodize properly. He taught me how to slow down the playback so that you can actually line up the vocals with the drum hits and vice versa. So Shawn is the first person who I learned a ton from. So he's really somebody who I advise you soak up the knowledge from the interview from. Hopefully you'll learn quite a bit from him too. So yeah, Shawn is the topic of the hour, but we're also going to be talking about engineering, and I wanted to talk about a few different things about going into the studio for bands who haven't done that before. I'd consider myself pretty well versed in the studio. I went to Musicians Institute back in 2007 to do Recording Institute of Technology. That was pretty much like my entrance into the audio world. I didn't know really anything about it when I first went in, and now I've been doing it for about 15 years. I built my own studio, and I now have the new studio that I got going on here where I do my broadcasts. But the cool thing about it is that when you're doing a live project, sometimes you can just like wing it. That's what I've enjoyed about doing this show. Just being able to freeform your ideas, being able to just play tracks, have fun. It's a really cool thing to do. And if you haven't checked out Ustream, that's what we're doing this on. I highly recommend checking out Ustream. Do your own concerts live. I swear they don't pay me to say this, but I'm such a big fan of the service that I recommend it to everybody else. But the thing about doing live versus doing a recording is that when you do a recording, you really have to have a plan before you go in. And so if you're going to a studio like Shawn's, like World Class Audio, I highly recommend that you have a plan before you go. You want to make sure, are you playing with a full band when you're recording? Are you going to have like every instrument all lined up, the drums, the bass, the guitar, and somebody's going to be singing and you're going to play all in the same live room? That's a much different time frame that you're going to be looking at as opposed to tracking, where you're going to do the drums and then you're going to do the bass and then you're going to rethink about the bass and the drums and blah, blah, blah. So you're really going to have like a different experience depending on how you set up your live experience. So make sure that when you're going in the studio, if you're doing the live band experience or if you're going to do the track by track, and really know like what kind of time frame you think you can work in. Another thing about time frame that I really want to mention is that sometimes people think that when you're paying an engineer for his time, you're paying for literally the time that he presses record till the time he presses stop. That is not true. You're paying this guy for the time he spent to tune the guitar, to set up the mics, to let you use his facilities and hang out. When you rent like a cabana, you don't only use the time that you were soaking in the sun and that's all you can charge the hotel for. You get the whole chunk of time that you spent the money on. So make sure that you're using that time efficiently, but also know that you're on his time. You're really like doing something where he's gonna take you into his facility. He's gonna spend the day working with you, and that's really worth the price of admission in my opinion. You're gonna be able to get somebody who knows how to tune your guitar maybe better than you do, somebody who's able to set up the right bass tone, somebody who really knows the acoustics of a drum kit. You got to know these kinds of things when you're going into a studio, because if you don't have like a proper perspective of what kind of instruments you're even gonna what kind of sound you're trying to get from your instrument, you're really gonna maybe second guess yourself too much in the studio. Whereas somebody like Shawn, who has a formula, he's really like knocked this out, he knows exactly how the acoustics work in his place. You're gonna really be grateful that you have somebody who's put in that legwork and is really like ready to apply it to your project. So just know you're also paying for his time just to like know these things, just to be with him, just to pick your brain. You should never take your audio engineer's time for granted is the point. So make sure that when you budget out your time, you do all that, you really like take advantage of what you're doing, and make sure that you also are fair to the person who you're doing as far as time is concerned, because they got a lot of things to do, especially Shawn. He's a busy guy. I know him. All right. But I'm not saying don't go book him. Shawn's not too busy for you guys. Go ahead and book him right away. All right. He's in Riverside, California. You'll hear more from him in just a little bit. We're going to get on to the second band here. The second band is a lovely lady named Serena Foster, who sent me a track. I think it was her label who sent me this track, actually. So thank you for sending me this track. Her music video just dropped recently, and it's pretty fun. It's a nice little flirty pop tune about, the possibilities of the evening here in Los Angeles. So yeah, I think the video speaks for itself. We're going to go ahead with Serena Foster, her track In the Night, here on Crimson Media Radio.
What you're talking about, it feels good, it feels good. And I know what you wanna say now. I'm okay, I'm okay. I know you wanna pull me close, so I know you don't wanna let go. Oh, I know you wanna hold me tight, but not tonight, not tonight. I'm only alive in the night. I'm only alive in the night, in the night. I'm only alive in the night, in the night. When the stars hit the light. I'm only alive in the night. I'm only alive in the night, in the night. I'm only alive in the night, in the night. When the stars hit the light.
Jeez, I did not know that she was going to be driving a Porsche at the end of that song. If I had known that, I would have asked her to come into the studio, and then I would have asked her to take me for a ride around LA afterwards. Yes, I am not beneath that. I will ask you on bended knee, take me across the coast in that Porsche, because I love cars. I'm such a gearhead. That was Serena Foster, and that was an awesome track. Thank you very much for sending that, and I hope that it brings you much success in the great city of LA here. I think that we're quite accommodating to good new talent, but that's what this show is about. This show is about being the grease in that wheel, so to speak, so we can keep on keeping the music coming out and keep local music heard. So, Serena Foster, thanks a lot. We're going to keep on going with the topic of the hour here, which is recording. Once again, Shawn Sullivan coming up here. He is going to be our guest of the hour coming up on the second hour here. But for now, we are going to continue talking about the studio work that you're going to have to sometimes do yourself in the studio. Yeah, the studio work you do in the studio. Ugh, sometimes live you are redundant. So yeah, one of the things that you're going to want to think about before going in the studio, we just talked about, was the budget that you're going to be taking into the studio. You don't want to accidentally shortchange yourself when you need to get a lot of work done. So make sure you know how much you're going to be spending, and make sure you know exactly make sure that you're familiar with the fact that your engineer, you're on his time. You're paying him for not just the record button, but you're paying for the whole experience. So make sure you respect his time as well. The next thing that you might want to consider is the fact that sometimes when you're writing your music and you're taking it to the studio, it might have sounded great in a live room, but you don't really know how it's going to translate to a record quite yet. Sometimes when you're working on your project, you're all jamming together, you really feel a vibe and you get a good feeling about the song, but that's not necessarily the end game there. You're going to need to find somebody else who might be a good set of second ears who can then help translate it to a record, because that's not always the engineer. Sometimes the engineer is a great producer, but what you really need to think about is, do you need a producer? Because in Shawn's case, Shawn knows how to play various instruments. He can play a drum part, he can get on the backing vocals, he can jam out on the bass, and that's great. If you can find an engineer like that, that's spectacular. But sometimes engineers really aren't that. Sometimes engineers are guys who, just have a console and they know how to make audio sound great. They know the Pro Tools functions, they know how to do DAW work very well. But then that's not necessarily the guy who can translate the instruments that you're playing onto a record. So remember, the producer is something that's absolutely important to think about. Is it going to be one of the band members who's working in collaboration with the engineer? Is the engineer the producer? Do you have a separate producer from the engineer who really is able to get an ear for the project and translate that well to somebody who has the technical knowledge to take that to the record? These are all things you're going to have to consider. Because songwriting is easy when you're in a room. Everybody knows that the songwriting process seems simple and the sky's the limit when you're hanging out with all your buddies. But when you're actually spending some time in the studio, you're going to realize that there are various things that you're going to need to think about. Does, when you're playing that bass part, is it getting too muddy with the guitar part? Are strings ringing out? That's the main thing I found out on my record. I had a lot of strings that were ringing. Excuse me, Voss water, best stuff on earth. I don't get paid by Voss either. I get paid by anybody, I swear. I just like to talk about what I actually like on this show. So, the thing about the producer is that the producer is usually somebody who's been in a band before. He's generally played a lot of instruments. He has a good understanding of songwriting, and he really has a good understanding of how to translate songwriting to a record. Because like I said, there's the string spilling issue that sometimes killed my record. I'd play a song where I'd start on the open D string, and then I'd play a little bit up the scale, and I'd realize that D note was still ringing out the whole song, and that kind of resonance can really get muddy on your record. You need somebody who can hear that kind of stuff and be like, hey, it'd be cleaner if you did this. On the record, if you did this part with a megaphone sound effect, you did this one with a talk box, you did this with extra reverb, you turn out the treble, you turn out the bass, he's the guy who can really listen to it and envision it on a record. So that's the brilliant thing about having a producer. Is the producer has done a record before, and he knows how to eventually get something that will be sold. It's not just you telling the engineer, hey bro, this is what I want on the record. He may not know how to make that artistically or not. Shawn does, but not very many people are really experts at that. So make sure that you really employ somebody who is, proficient in translating songwriting to a record. It's absolutely crucial. The other thing that you need to think about is the fact that, you're the musician, he's the engineer. Sometimes you got to respect that boundary, the fact that you don't know as much about, like, the way it's going to translate on record as the engineer necessarily does. When you're a musician, sometimes you have a very good ear for your own tone. That's why you buy your own gear. You tell all your friends, hey, bro, I got that one amplifier. And it's awesome. Like you really get that feeling of satisfaction when you nail your tone. But when you're in the studio, it may not be the exact thing that you're thinking of, because sometimes guitar tones translate differently on a record. You're putting it against your bass tone's favorite tone, your bass player's favorite tone. You're putting it against your drummer's favorite kick drum tone. Sometimes that doesn't translate perfectly, and you really have to have the perspective of how it's going to look on the grand scale. So you need to think of your engineer kind of like as your orchestrator in a way. You're members of the orchestra, and he's the conductor. He's the one up there with the, check this out, I got the Voldemort wand right here. Dun, 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 and he realizes, hey, the bass player is playing a little too loud with the deep end, and the guitar player, he has too much trouble, it's stepping all over the singer. And I love doing this. Dun, da, 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 da. Voldemort's wand, that's the best gift I ever got for Christmas. So the point is that the conductor is the guy who's going to keep your whole band together on the record, and the engineer is really the one who has the ear for that. So let your need for your perfect tone exactly to your specifications. Don't just let your need for perfection go a little bit, because the engineer is going to help you get it right on the record, not just in your own ear, and everybody's own ear is sometimes conflicting with each other. That's what the engineer's here, is to clear up those technical arguments. Oh, is that 2K? Is that 4K? That's 12K. He'll be the guy who settles that argument. So make sure that you give him that reverence, that he's the guy with the ears most of the time. We're going to get on to talking about project studios, because I think that's another really important topic. But project studios are where you obviously write your songs and eventually kind of get the songwriting done before you go to the studio. We'll talk about that in just a minute, as well as the topic of mastering. But we have one more band up tonight who was from the submissions for this week. They are a band called Echo Muse. Echo Muse is from Utah, and they were really cool. They sent me this song, and I loved it. I was absolutely a fan. So once again, thank you guys for sending me this track. Much appreciated. We're going to go ahead and play their track here. This is Echo Muse, and the song is called Leashes. Hope you guys like it here on Crimson Media Radio.
Strike a match and light the fire. Pop a pill and choose your side. Like a movie and its terror, got it all hidden in disguise. Never leaves, got it so romantic. Like a shadow always back to back. Take a breath, how you feeling now, kid? They can't see it but it's in your eyes. Stuck on thin ice or left you skating. Subject to the crack, then it all starts breaking. Slowly we fell, now we're suffocating. Bury me down, now we're left. Let the rain fall, let it crash down on me. Can we break through as we struggle to breathe? If we all fail, will we still find a way? I'll leave behind every lie. Break your leashes and ties. Got me locked up in a glass case. Never knew if a key was built. Left here for the public's display. Will I ever make it out? When it comes, we all start to panic. No control over your mind. Take a breath, how you feeling now, kid? Break your leashes and your ties. Stuck on thin ice, so we're left here skating. Subject to the crack, then it all starts breaking. Slowly we fell, now we're suffocating. Bury me down, now we're left. Let the rain fall, let it crash down on me. Can we break through as we struggle to breathe? If we all fail, will
Break Your Leash and End Ties. That was the Echo Muse by Utah. They're not called the Echo Muse, they're called Echo Muse. I hope that I got the right link up on the website because I pressed that and then I noticed that it wasn't showing the right one. So hopefully everybody's like linked in here. I'm going to go ahead and shoot another link on the website just in case everybody didn't get this right one. I'm telling you, all this live streaming business, you never know exactly how everything's going to show up. All right, so we got that Ustream channel. If you have not, let's see. If you have not gotten the right live link, check this one out here. Boom. All right. Hopefully that gets everybody to the right place. Sorry about that. It's a little tricky sometimes knowing what's going to show up on the website when I copy the Ustream link. Mastering all this stuff, promise it'll be better in the future. But the live casting is getting really fun, actually. I've been enjoying doing this all. So yeah, I'm going to make sure that everybody gets over to the right page, but we're going to the final segment here with Shawn, so we're going to get to the interview in just a minute. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody has a clear understanding about project studios versus recording studios. Now, I know a lot of people at home have project studios where they write most of their tracks, and that's where they do a lot of their creative work. That's where they start making music. That's where they start, getting tunes down, trying to figure out exactly what they're all about. But the thing is, when you're recording at home, it's not always like the ideal way to take it to an actual record. It's a great way to lay out your tracks. It's a good way to organize your thoughts. It's a good way to know exactly like what you're going to go into the studio doing. But the project studio is not where you're going to be bringing, your final tracks from. A lot of times you don't have like the perfect preamps. I mean, maybe you have some pretty decent ones, but even if you have great preamps, you may not have a great translation rate on your DAW input. Like if you have like a Universal Apollo, for example, you might have like pretty good input, but even then you might not even have the processing power on your computer. There's so many things that you need to think about when you're like actually recording a record, and that's the kind of stuff that Shawn is there for. He's the kind of guy who can really help you translate what you're doing on your record, and he can help you get it to a listenable form for the masses. But what you're doing at the project studio is getting the game plan together. Sometimes you're jamming with your buddies. You got one of them on the machine, for example. I have a machine over here, by the way. You may have like one guy jamming out a bass drum, a bass, and then somebody else who's jamming out on a drum kit, and then you are able to get song ideas together in the project studio. But that's not the final record. That's just the idea. Just like when you're scribbling down a short story, that's not the final novel. That's just like the first words to the actual document. So you need to actually keep perspective on what you're doing. And don't take the tracks that you did for your project studio straight to your engineer and say, hey, just dump this into the session, bro. Because it doesn't really work that way. A lot of times you're going to want to really get like a good brand new take. You're going to want to take what you did before and do it even better. If you do it that way, you're going to have a lot more success. Me personally, when I was doing all of my records, I used to have a lot of trouble like figuring out exactly like what I was going to do, how I was going to make a record all at home. I was like, how do you do that? That's got to be possible, right? And the sad news is it rarely is, especially because you can't really do your own music as well as somebody else can. So, when you have somebody else listening to your project, they're going to be able to tell you how to do your project better, hopefully, if it's a good team anyways. And speaking of that, the last thing we're going to talk about is mastering. Mastering is something that I've, kind of encountered problems with throughout my years doing audio. And the thing about mastering is that it's really a different process from tracking, and it's an even different process than editing. Because, first you track a project, and then you get your guy to edit the project. You get like all the different tracks down to perfection. You get it all timed, auto-tuned, lined up, and pretty sounding. But that's not even the final thing, because then you bounce it down to a stereo track. Now, what you do with that stereo track is very, very different than what you're actually going to put on the record, because that's not the final step. Now, that stereo track can be like fattened up. It can actually have like, EQ highlights. There are a lot of cool things you can do with the final master, and that's where a mastering house comes into play. Now, it's not just that your editor might not have the chops to do a master. I'm sure he does, but he's been working on the project for a long time most of the time. there's a phenomenon called dead ear. Eventually, you get in the studio and then you listen to something for long enough. You eventually kind of get like a dead ear. You just like don't have like the same kind of sound coming through your ears anymore. You need a fresh set of ears because you're not even like fully cognizant of what it's supposed to sound like anymore. That's where a mastering engineer comes in. He's going to have a fresh set of ears and he's going to know how to sparkle up that master track before you put it on a record and then send it out. Also, there are specifications that sometimes you need to bounce it to. For example, do you have like a low res stream? Do you have a high res stream? Are you putting it on CD? Are you putting it on iTunes? You're going to need to know the sample rates. You're going to need to know what kind of file it's going to be in. You're going to need to know what kind of medium you're going to put it on, like a CD, a record. There are just so many different things that you need to keep in mind. And the amazing thing about it is that when you have like a good team, an editor, a mastering engineer, and then they can really complement and work off of each other, you're going to have an amazing sounding record because now they're competing with each other to see who can do the best sound. It's really, really incredible. So I highly recommend checking out all of that. Look for some good mastering studios, for good project studios. I'm sure Shawn can do like most of the things that I'm talking about. Shawn can do the mastering, the editing, and all of that. But it's something to keep in mind. Sometimes you might be like, hey, Shawn, I think that I should actually take this down to the mastering house at blah, blah, blah. Then Shawn will at least know how to give you the headroom so that he can master to the specifications. I think it's usually about 3 dBs headroom you want to give the engineer, and then he can use that to just give like slight EQ boosts, slight mastering boosts, things like that. And you just need to make sure you communicate that to your editing engineer so that if you do take it to a mastering house, he knows what to do to mix it and master it to the proper specifications. So that is it on my take on mixing and mastering. I'm going to tell you, Shawn knows a little bit more than even I do about all this. I know, my fair amount, but Shawn is the expert on this. So check him out at World Class Audio. You'll be able to do that coming up here. Shawn will give all the plugs for his show. And I'm going to go ahead and let him take over here now. We're going to go ahead and play the interview that we recorded on Wednesday here at Crimson Media. And hopefully you guys like it. This is Shawn Sullivan, and this is his words of wisdom here on Crimson Media Radio. Crimson Media Radio. I am your host, Sleeve T, and we are interviewing our engineering chief, Shawn Sullivan from World Class Audio. This guy has worked with several bands that are quite formidable. Some of them include Bleeding Through, Real Big Fish, Lit, in case you ever heard that song, My Own Worst Enemy. This guy has done a lot of great tracks, and he's actually won a Grammy for his editing with Mars Volta. Did I get all of your resume correct?
Pretty much. It's a Grammy certificate. So
okay, cool.
You don't get the trophy. You get like a little plaque, and then you got to send them $40 to get it. So
it's like a participation trophy.
Yeah, well, it's a send them money, and then you'll get the Grammy certificate.
Okay.
The people that get the statues have to pay $1,500 to get the statues. So you don't actually get a Grammy when you win a Grammy. You have to buy it.
Oh wow, I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, it sucks. Takes away all the romance. Takes away all the bromance.
Yeah, it's like pay to play. It's like you pretty much like paying for a hooker's time or something.
Completely is. Yeah, it completely is. That's why some of these bands, like they win Grammys, are like they're like, screw you, we're not even showing up, and that's why
they don't even accept it. Wow.
A lot of them are not even down with it. That and other reasons, I'm sure too. But I'm not bitter about it. I'm stoked. Grammy certificate winners.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me.
I mean, that's a great thing to put on your resume no matter what. Yeah, so okay, we got all the bands correct though, right? You worked with
There's so many more, but I mean that's some one,
it's a good handful.
Dude, yeah. There's been a ton, but yeah, I'm stoked. I'm stoked to be doing what I have to do.
I mean, I know that you're working on some projects in New Zealand as well, and you got some people all over the world who are, seeking your services. You guys are not just doing Skype phone calls with me, but, you're actually doing it with your clients all over the world. That's awesome. That's what I love about technology nowadays.
Yeah, it's great. And it's for some reason I kind of started doing a few great New Zealand bands, Australia, New Zealand. Fornax Chemica was first, and then their friends, Logic Defies Logic, heard some of the stuff, and they're friends with this guy, Simon over there.
We're going to be playing these bands, by the way. We're definitely going to be playing these in just a second.
Yeah, so it's kind of it's all word of mouth. I mean, that's the only way I get anybody calling me or booking me to do anything. It's somebody
Right.
hears their friend's band, and then that's how it works. And then strangely, I got a couple of bands from there. I got a good band from the UK. I've had bands from Japan, fly out and do stuff. So it's, but mostly I'm doing, kind of like a 50% LA, 50% people from the IE, which is great because I'm getting like people driving past a million studios to come to my studio to track.
Yeah,
So
exactly. I mean, that's the point, is that everybody's got a shindig in their garage. I mean, I have a shindig right here in my apartment,
yeah, you got a
And
nice shindig.
oh,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that. I worked hard on it. Yeah, but the point is like, I had seen like all those demo studios. I used to run one down in Riverside, but I think that like, for me personally in my engineering journey, it was like actually checking out your studio that I think like I was finally like understanding what, enough willpower can do in the audio industry. You pretty much just built your place like, from scratch. You like got down on like all fours and just started like hammering in those nails.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I mean, last week was the last time I was down on all fours, for audio.
oh please, you're
Not the
gonna
first time I've been on my hands and knees for audio.
my pants are getting a little crowded just thinking about that.
Yeah, totally, man. 3/4 chunks, okay. Anything more than that, just getting gratuitous. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So you built but my point is you built the entire studio like right there in a barn in your property, right?
yeah, everybody calls it a barn, but it's really just a metal building, because
Yeah.
there was no farm animals there. But barn doesn't bum me out at all. I think it's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
I wish
yeah.
it was a barn.
I mean that I was more impressed by that. I'm just gonna say it's an undisclosed location somewhere, but it is like pretty much like a giant steel building. And I mean
Yep.
the way that he was able to utilize the space just to like make it a professional audio space. I mean you did like even some like renowned techniques to like get the oral effects inside the rooms like perfect, right? I mean
Yeah, there. The whole thing was math was used on the whole thing, and an engineer that's
math.
been acousting math math and math.
It helps. It helps.
Yeah, the guy that designed it, I mean, he actually literally did all the math on it and penciled out, like literally penciled out graphs on like all the different modes of room resonances. There's axial and tangential and oblique modes and all this,
Right,
all
right.
this stuff.
All the stuff that I had heard in
and so,
audio engineering school that I don't know, it had never had full relevance because I had never had the space to utilize
yeah,
that kind of stuff.
yeah, and it's like there's random rooms that have sounded great without that stuff because they had all of the little elements that came together randomly that made the room sound cool. But when you're actually building a room from scratch and you want your room to sound good, like the acoustics have to be handled, and
Yeah.
you know, I wasn't going to rely on randomness to make my room good, so we just signed out, did all the trapping, and diffusers and abfusers and all the crazy stuff that
Yeah, and my fans who are checking this out, I mean, they probably hopefully checked out your website by now. You can see all the photos there. I mean, this is like really professional stuff. This isn't bullshit here. And the great thing about it is, like you have the name World Class Audio. I mean, that's a bold ass name in my opinion.
it was. And it took me a lot of years to try to catch up to the name, because it's started off with 160 tons of garbage and had to clean it out and build up. But I've had that name ever since. I had another studio that was really nice in Anaheim that was doing great. And then, that whole Lennar Platinum Triangle Agenda 21, 2030, whatever, which they did. They tore everything, got everybody out, tore everything down, and built up apartments with shops below. And so
Wow, so they just like built like a gentrified community just to like build yeah, I know the game. I know the game.
That's exactly what it is. And so everybody that was in a lease, they just booted everybody out of their leases or waited till their leases and ended, and then just said, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it, bro. We'll renew your lease." And so that didn't happen. So I had to start completely over from scratch. So this place, I bought the home and purchased it. And
Right, and that was your pet project. I know that we'll talk about the woes of purchasing a home later, I'm sure. Yeah, but right now I just want to stick to your career really quick. I mean, this is a complex subject about building up like an entire place from scratch, getting a mortgage and all that. I mean, that's ultimately what some people choose to do, but
that's another video, but the building part of it, it's literally starting from nothing and learning how to do, framing and, it's amazing what you can do now. You can almost do anything by looking up how to do something now on YouTube and,
DIY
watching.
videos and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, experienced contractors like, here's how you frame a wall and don't make it crooked. It's like, oh, cool. And it's like, just basic stuff, and then you start doing it, and then you get fast at it and good.
And finding the
Uh,
time to be able to do that kind of stuff too. I mean, a lot of
yeah,
people have a lot of mindless self-indulgence in their life.
yeah, it's all done with music money. People walk in, and it's like, oh, bro, must be nice. It's like you have no idea how much heartache and blood went into this place. But
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's kind of the deal. It's like literally this place is built from music. It's like
Yeah.
it wasn't mom and dad's money. It wasn't some huge loan that built it either. It was
Yep.
just doing records and putting it back in and putting it back in and
The
then
old-fashioned way
you know
is just pulling up those bootstraps. And I think that the fact that you've worked so hard to build that space is like really like one of the reasons why like you take like the bands who come into your studio so seriously, is because you understand the struggle.
Yeah, no, I do, and it's the responsibility of actually everyone's sound, not just as good as they really are, but as good as I can make them, help them be, and it's
And
like
that's
it's
one of the most important points we're going to talk about tonight, honestly, is just how good you can be. Because, Mama always told us we were all special. And it said,
yeah,
you need to be yourself. And obviously you need to be yourself, but that's not good enough. You need to be your best self. And I think that sometimes you need like a mentor or somebody who's just like a second set of ears that's really professional who can bring that out of you. I really
well,
found...
that's the thing. Almost every band I get now is a band that's done their own recording. Either they're stuck because they got it as far as they could go and they realize, oh, that plugin and that DAW and that tuning program didn't make me sound awesome. It might have made it sound worse actually sometimes.
Right, kind of artificial.
But so almost every band has tried it on their own, and then I get them. Or I'm doing an entire record right now where it's been recorded and mixed by a guy, and I'm remixing the entire record because
the first guy
the
failed.
No, well, he did a good job on tracking on almost everything, but the mix was absolutely
Almost
a fail.
everything.
I'm not going to drop any names, but yeah, the mix was a
Yeah, of
total
course not.
fail. So that I get to remix the record, and the guy did a really good job tracking. So it's like, it's kind of like you want to take them aside and say, hey, either you get a lot better at mixing or focus on tracking, and you can actually do that. You can just track and be like the tracking guy.
Absolutely. I've always said this. People can actually like make pretty decent project studios by themselves. I mean, certain sound spaces are definitely required, but I've seen a lot of people actually make some pretty decent tracks just in their bedroom, and then if they have like the pro guy like mixing and mastering it, it can still sound just as professional as anything else. But one thing that we're going to talk about today too is the fact that a lot of people really sell themselves short on the sound when they're trying to do like drums with just like deadened rooms with blankets and stuff like that, or they don't know exactly what they're doing at their home project sometimes.
You can try to fool yourself that you can compete with a really kick-ass room and having a backline, but unless you're doing what a lot of the people are doing now, where they're literally just playing in on a keyboard, Superior Drummer. And it's like, well, if you're a metal band or a band that's just doing that, and you're like, they don't even, there's no pretense of real drums. They literally play it in on a keyboard. So
Right.
if you're a band like that, well, yeah, I mean, you don't need me at all. It's like, yeah, or maybe you might need me at mixing, but you might not need me for that either. But
Right.
yeah, but I'm dealing with bands that are real drums, people that are live tracking a lot,
Right.
or people that want that vibe. And it's like, that's kind of like what I try to focus on, is just getting that vibe and having a real band vibe, even if it's just a guy like yourself, like where it's like, okay, you're the main guy and you've got your side guys that you bring in. It's like you still want it to sound like a band, It's
Right,
like,
right.
You know what I mean? Or at least I think you do.
Yeah, well, I know certainly about bringing lots of guys into the studio. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but yeah, definitely. I think that one of the most important things about it is when I first started doing my project. And by the way, I just wanted to mention Shawn Sullivan is working on my project, The Omega Point, and we're currently mixing it. It's a kick-ass album. It'll be out probably hopefully, this year sometime, I'm imagining. Praying to God. And we also got some more tracks coming out soon, too. So Shawn is the man behind these tracks you've heard. It's why it sounds so kick-ass. But the reason why is because I started off making like pre-production tracks originally on my laptop, as you probably remember. I just like started doing things with just, like you said, Superior Drummer or Addictive Drums, I think I used. And then eventually I took that to you, and I was just like, hey, dude, I'm thinking about trying to find a drummer at a certain studio. And then you were just like, dude, do you want this album to be like an album, or do you want it to be like, legendary? Like, and I was just, that's a profound question. Am I going to cut corners on it just because, like, I don't necessarily like have enough money to do it like a certain way, or am I going to like really like make this project like a testament to what the project can sound like? And you talked me into that, and when I saw your studio, it was just like, I can't take like this demo that I made and try and cut that as my album. I need to work with this guy, and we need to get it to be even better than it was. And that's exactly it. Now we got real musicians who are like working on the entire record, drummers, bassists, and it was really like a transformative project for me to watch that come to life.
That's cool. Yeah, and it's great, hearing your stuff played back or sounding the right way is kind of like, I'm not a drug addict, but I mean, it to me, once you're hooked on that and you're at a certain level, like
you almost get it.
It's like you're not going to go back, or if you do, you're just regretting it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like once you hit a certain level, and then all of a sudden it's like, what are you going to do? Go do something not as well with somebody else or whatever. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you find your guy, and whoever that is, I'm not saying me, but with like, talking to other people, it's like
Shawn.
you find a guy that you love to work with,
Yeah.
And I hope it's me, but if it's not me, if you find some other guy, it's like, yeah, once you got the guy who's like totally nailing it and getting your sound, it's like, that's it, man, you're home,
Exactly.
And of course it,
yeah. And honestly, one of the best things about getting that is just, at the end of the day, you got a record. It sounds like how it should sound instead of like, just like your songs that you even heard in your head. It's going to be even better than like what you probably anticipated.
So, sometimes it happens.
Yeah. It's a rare case. It's a rare case, but I found it happening with the Omega Point. It was eye-opening, and that's why I want to try and spread the gospel now,
That's cool. One of the bands right along the line of what we're talking about, that Naked and Unashamed band, that's like something that was done super fast. These guys were like, hey man, we got like a couple hours, and it's like you just burst out laughing in the studio. It's like, you got a couple hours, like, all right, what do you want to make some grilled cheese sandwiches, or we want but we knocked out like the entire song in like 3 hours.
Wow.
So and then I think I had like an hour and a half to mix, which is absurd,
Yeah,
but,
I mean, sometimes sessions go like that.
Yeah, it just went real fast, and it's like, yeah, I could do more in the mix, yeah, but I just put it on the console and just like, you know what, I'm just gonna make this thing rock as hard as I can in this ridiculously small time frame, and then that's it.
What was that band called that you said?
Naked and Unashamed.
Oh, what do you know? I have Naked and Unashamed's track right here on the playlist. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I guess this is a great natural segue. Let's go ahead and listen to that. Is this the track that you guys did in 3 hours?
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool. So this track was apparently made in 3 hours, and it's just a testament to like what can be done in the studio with enough willpower. So yeah, let's go ahead and play this track right now. This is Naked and Unashamed, and the song is called Start Again. Congratulations for your excellent work ethic, guys in the studio. Shawn gives you the stamp of approval. We're going to listen to the track right now on Crimson Media Radio.
Don't know what you're waiting for, only time will tell. I don't know who you're waiting on, you already got me beneath your spell. Don't know what it is, you draw your curtains too close. I ask you if you love me still, you say I don't. Tell me I should give up, go out and live. one thing, dog. I don't wanna start. Yeah. Memorize the tracks you wore, baby, that first time. Walk right in through that door into my life. How could I forget? I was not supposed to know that someday you would become my one haunting ghost. Memorize your favorite line just to make you laugh. Made you chicken soup on days that you felt bad. Wrote you silly songs, sang them to you on the phone when we stayed up till the morn, talking about only God knows. So I don't know what you're waiting on, only time will tell. Don't know who you're waiting for, got me beneath your spell. Don't know why it is you draw your curtains too close. 'Cause I ask you if you love me still, you say I don't know. Tell me else you just give up, go out and live. Tell you one thing, darling, that I don't wanna start again. Don't wanna start again. Don't wanna start again. Don't wanna start again. Memorize your mama's stories about days gone by, when she was just a little girl waiting a knight in shining armor to save her with his guitar, just like I do to you. Make sure daddy's proud when he met me. Told him I wouldn't let him down, I would make you my queen. Try to get along with all your hateful friends, kissing
That would be perfect indeed. And we are back to Crimson Media Radio with Shawn Sullivan on the other line here on our Skype call. And we're going to keep on trucking here, but we just wanted to mention that was Naked and Unashamed, and they were Naked Unashamed in the 3-hour recording session that did that song. So
They were making.
yeah, they were making. They were making indeed. Naked. Were they naked in the studio?
No, they had clothes on, which I'm thankful. I'm thankful every day for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's not always been the case though, right?
They're handsome young lads, but they're just not my jam. It's not that. Their music is my jam, but
yeah, of course, but dongs in your face is definitely not. Yeah, so
yeah, so on the days that end with Y,
just the days that end in day, really.
Right.
Yeah, so Naked and Unashamed, that's a great track, by the way. That was really killer, and it does have kind of this feeling that it was just done off the cusp of it. I mean, that's a really
it was quick, man.
Mm-hmm.
And actually the intro was literally a first take, and this is kind of a brute force kind of a rock band. And not, I mean, brute force. Well, no, it is. They've kind of just everything's kind of just
right.
Energy.
Edge of your seat kind of rock and roll.
And they do this Mark Knopfler, super chill, clean, quiet intro, with these guitars, just real slow. And I'm and it's recording. I'm rolling, and I'm oh man, there ain't no way they're gonna nail this, because their wheelhouse is playing the swinging, moving stuff, and no, they totally nailed it. They totally nailed it first take. It was that's the performance you hear for the final thing. So
wow, so they're really tight
which
band.
is impressive.
They've been practicing a lot together probably before they went into the studio.
Yeah, they've been practicing a bit. I mean, they had other things that guitar, bass, and drums wise, things were handled really, really quickly, and then for the singing, we had to kind of get in and do some tuning. But after tuning it, it sounded amazing. So It was one of those things, after doing this for a long, long time, back in the day, I would have stopped them and had them try to sing closer to pitch or whatever. But I was just listening to the energy and what he was doing. And it's it sounds great. His tone is great. He's delivering the message well. I'm well, screw it. I'll let tuning do the rest.
Right.
And so that's what I let it go. We literally did 2 passes on the vocal. That was it.
Wow.
And then
that's
the
really
basic
rare
track
for vocals.
Yeah, he's super rare. 2 passes. That was all he got. Because remember, we were under this ridiculous time constraint that no one should ever operate under. But and then the take itself is a straight take of the band playing. So I think we might have a punch in or something. But I mean,
just that's a live thing of the band in your room.
Yeah, band in a room, literally. What everybody almost jokes about now because it's
because it's almost like a unicorn now.
Yeah. It's a rainbow unicorn,
Yeah, the band doing it all in one take. Who does that?
Yeah. But now it's weird. I'm on a roll of getting bands that are actual bands that come in and want to track.
Right.
And I mean, dude, I have so many stories. It's crazy. But I
yeah.
don't want to throw you off track. So
no, you're doing good. This is good. This is provocative.
We'll ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had a band that came in that. Every band member asked for that was playing a guitar didn't bring picks, so no one brought a pick. No one brought a pick.
You play guitar and you don't have a pick, huh?
They didn't even have any pick. It wasn't oh man, I've only got that one, but I like a thinner one. No, they didn't have any.
Wow.
Drummer didn't bring sticks.
Oh geez, that's a tough day. That's a tough day indeed.
The guitars they did bring were couldn't play in tune properly at all.
Oh boy.
So it was exactly. It was oh boy, here we go. this, and I'm I try to stay positive no matter what.
Yeah.
Because I've seen
sessions go downhill if the positivity.
I've seen in the movies with the planes about to hit the ground and they're pull, and the the robot voice is going pull up, that's happening. It's I've pulled up with those bands many times and not hit the ground and got tennis claps from people on the ground. So it was a crazy situation where but it was fine. I'm like, yes, I do have a thick pick for you because the chick wanted the thick pick.
Yeah, of course,
The
of
guy
course.
wanted
She
them
doesn't
kind
want a
of
thin
pick. I'm like,
one.
hey, I have that pick.
She doesn't want
And
the thin bent one, that's for sure.
no, no, she wanted the thick one. So as many girls do. But woo.
Where were
Anyway,
we?
so back to your show.
Yeah.
So
This is all my show. I don't care.
right. So it kept getting better. It was like the gift that kept on giving. It's like they start playing the song right after I supplied them with guitars, picks, amps, sticks. I said already. And anyways, so they start playing, and I hear like this low E string on the guitar. It's just like bar 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 bar. But it's happening over like A to G to C to B flat, to F, but the low E is going the whole time.
What?
And so I'm like, literally a song that's just got one note being played the entire time, but over chord changes.
Wow.
So I'm like, yeah, I made a CB sound, but my talkback mic doesn't really make a CB sound.
Yeah,
I wish
yeah.
it did.
I mean, I think that's what I think when I think of the talkback, anyways.
Yeah. So I'm like, so are you meaning to, play your low E string the entire song? And yeah,
And he was just like, yeah.
Well, it was the woman in the session.
Oh, okay.
And
she
like,
was like,
oh,
yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to sound sexist.
She was
there.
like, oh, well, nah, it's all right. It's like, oh, you know what? No, I'm actually not supposed to play that string like ever on the song. Like, I don't even, because she didn't do any bar chords. Like, well, she did, but they were like not full bar chords.
Right.
So I'm like this, like, again, 15 years ago or whatever, I would have been like, what's wrong with you? Like, don't you know how to play your guitar? Like, come on, you got to hit the strings right. No, you know what I did? I get my roll of gaff tape, right? And I'm like, yeah, no problem. And I get it, and I just tape her freaking E string, so she can't ever hit that E string again on that song.
You did that for my session too.
Yeah, but this one was on for the entire song.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we did that. We did that. So
it's a good trick.
Yeah, but yeah. So it's just kind of funny. It's like it was just like I didn't even make a thing about it because like, dude, it's a piece of tape. Who cares? So I put it on there. The whole band goes, "Oh, that's what's been going on during our practices. We were always thought it sounded weird. Didn't know what was happening." I'm like, "You didn't know the low E string of the guitar? Okay, never mind."
Yeah, so they were just like all of a sudden
one note.
All of a sudden, like the whole guitar neck becomes like relevant to them in that moment in time.
Yeah. So anyway, so and that could have been a train wreck, that whole session. But it wasn't. It came out really, really cool.
Yeah.
And they're another band where they're local band, and it's like, like, hey, we've got like 2 hours. That band.
That's like, the most we can afford.
Setup is gonna take me at least an hour for a whole band with headphone mixes.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran around. Actually, we got set up super fast, and then they got 2 songs done in 2 hours.
Wow.
So yeah, totally nuts. I mean, this only happens when you have an actual band, and they weren't super well rehearsed, but it was just like, it's like doing triage. It's like okay, there's a guy that has a pimple, then there's another dude that's got his arteries spewing blood out. Like, who are you gonna help first? You know what I mean? So I left the pimples.
Yeah, is the bottom line of that story.
You're
exactly.
Pimples when you get home. I'm not popping those for you, but I'll clamp off this artery for this guy, and so get the big stuff.
Let me ask you, aside from arteries and pimples, the whole thing about like bands coming in and expecting the right amount of time when they go to the studio is kind of like a controversial subject. When I used to run the studio, for example, people would like always try to like hold me to like the exact amount of time that I sat in front of the console and recorded them, including like when I tried to press the stop button. They're trying to like, oh nope, sorry, we're not on the clock right now. I'm like, what? I'm not still here. I'm not still like helping you guys out with it. Like a Guitar Center, like if I like worked at a Guitar Center, for example, hypothetically, completely hypothetically, if I worked at something like that and then I was just like, I'm just only going to get paid for the time that I'm in front of the green screen making sales, Like that would make no sense, you know? Like so that's what I
Right.
think is like something people need to understand about the engineer. You're paying for his time to be there, to set you up, to like actually get the sound right. And even if you need
Yeah.
to like spend time like fixing the strings, fixing the tuning, like just getting everything perfect, that's what you're paying him for. So don't like act like, you know, it's just like, oh, it's exactly when he's pressing play or record, because that's not
Yeah,
true.
it's like a lot of people just don't realize that, there's a lot of setup involved. It, especially if you're tracking drums and tracking a whole band.
Mm-hmm.
And they always throw curveballs at you. It's like, okay, there's a dude that shows up with 5 toms. Okay, it's like, all right, well, I got to set up 3 more tom mics. I got to rob 3 more mic pre's. I've got to like run 3 more lines. We got to, then they want 2 vocal mics, but no one actually sings, while they're tracking. It's like, well, okay, I'm going to run out these 2 extra things, little things like that.
Right,
But
right. And that
yeah,
doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a big drum set that, like, I mean, I honestly, you have to ask yourself realistic questions in the studio, like what's practical for the session?
yeah, yeah. For this particular band, it was a real young kid, like 14, and like he has double kicks, he has a million cymbals, and he has 5 toms, and
Wow.
and like that's his thing. Like it's all in a rack. So it's like,
It's got
there's
the whole
no,
Neil Peart going on.
yeah, it is a Neil Peart thing. So it's like for him pulling it out, playing with less toms, that would have messed him up so bad. So it
Yeah.
was like, oh, whatever, I'll just pull out some more mics, and it's going to be a little bit more setup time. And they're like, yeah, yeah, we know.
Right,
It's like,
right. Do you ever bypass any of that with just using like one mic to capture several like several pieces of the kit, or do you just like always like specify?
only if I'm completely out of way more important things,
Mm-hmm.
which there are a lot more important things than a bunch of toms. But
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah, only
exactly.
if I've got 5 guitar players and all of my dynamic mics are chewed up, and it's like, yeah, then I would start putting a mic in between a couple toms.
Right,
But nah, I
right.
didn't have to do that. I was able to mic everything individually, and it was, whatever. But
Now, when you're doing sessions and you have to do something like that, where you got to get like one mic on like 2 toms, for example, like some people try to get their drums to sound like a little bit more precise with like gating and triggering and stuff, and that's something that is like really gonna get messed up if you're like starting to like share microphones for different drums, right?
yeah, absolutely true. Yeah, if you start sharing it, then now all of your cymbal leakage is twice as loud because you've got
Right.
twice, just about twice the leakage. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So well, I guess it depends on who you ask, because technically you've got one thing bringing in cymbals from the back. I mean, as long as the problem is that you can't get the mic to spread that far out
Yeah.
with its polar pattern.
Yeah.
And so what you're really doing is not picking up the optimum place on the drum, and I think that's even a bigger problem than leakage. Yeah.
Sure, sure.
So,
And
but
like honestly, like you could even like sound replace like certain hits if you were to just like take something that was like a mic between them, right? Couldn't you just sound replace it or
big time,
yeah.
big
Yeah, I mean if I've
yeah.
I've saved entire sessions through sound replacement sometimes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I use that Massey DRT audio to MIDI. So
Mhm.
I'll have MIDI notes for every single hit, and then I just that routes into a Superior Drummer, and then I've got a bunch of Superior Drummer libraries, and it freaking saves my butt on a daily basis. In fact, today I was doing it.
Right. So you
So
actually turn a lot of the drum hits into like actual MIDI data and then it goes through a MIDI processor is what you're saying?
now it goes into Superior Drummer.
Uh-huh.
So the MIDI will trigger Superior Drummer.
Sure,
So
sure.
that's how I'm able to take the real drum, snare, kick, whatever, and then pop that in. And a lot of sessions, like the snare sounds fine, I can totally make it work, and it's great. But the room mics, if somebody gives me something is tracked somewhere else, or even if it's tracked here and somebody was just hitting the cymbal like it owed them a bunch of money,
Right,
uh,
right.
it's like, well, I can't even use my awesome sounding room mics in my great sounding room because somebody was smashing an 18-inch cymbal, too hard, and getting the wrong tone.
Right,
So
right.
I'll use Spirit Drummer just for the ambience. The
Yeah.
amp.
Yeah, and a lot of times people just use like the triggers for like the clarity, just like having like the drums be able to cut through. But then sometimes people
Yeah,
like just don't find that perfect balance between like, like the trigger and the actual real sound, and then it just ends up sounding
yeah,
like you just like did it on like addictive drums or something.
Yeah, no, I mean, I go in and tune the snare of the trigger to the snare, and EQ between both of them. I mean, you cannot tell like when I'm done at all. Like you
Yeah, and
just can't tell.
that's exactly
It
it.
sounds
That's the desired effect, is to be able to blend the two, and then you can actually get like that perfect. It's almost like on Photoshop where you have like the opacity, like you're actually
Yep.
like just adjusting the opacity of like how much your trigger is mixing in with the real sound, and it's that's what I'm saying is essential to like get that mix right there. And watching you like
Yeah.
be able to like get those triggers to like that perfect mix was really kind of eye opening, and hearing how much it makes your mix pop.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference, man. There's some exceptions, like okay, like Ravenscroft, that which we've got the track Ravenscroft.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I see it right here.
Actually, yeah, not the dearest one. That's a ballad. It's the other one, the Chase, I think.
The Chase, I see it
Is that
right
what it is?
here. It's
Yeah,
right there. Yeah.
yeah, that one. There's no triggers on that because it's Pat McGrath and he's
Oh,
hitting
Pat
each
McGrath's on
drum
that
as it.
track. No shit.
Yeah, Pat McGrath's on that track, and there's no triggers because he's just plays like a freaking animal, and I didn't need it didn't need any help from anyone. It's just Pat basically shooting a nail on each drum with every hit. Like it's so. But there's example of like okay, hey, if you're on his level and you get those sounds, it's like it just doesn't need any help.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Pat McGrath is a really, really, truly talented drummer. I mean,
Yeah, he's insane.
I
So
used to work with that guy back in the day, my music shop days, and yeah, that guy was just killer.
cool, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like the rest of us aren't mythical Norse gods, and so we can't play drums like him. So we need a little help.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a good drummer. That's why drummers are so easy to employ, in my opinion. It's because the good drummer is really hard to find.
Yeah, yeah. But,
Yeah.
so that track, that's like a where case by case basis, like, well, hey, I can get everything I need out of this, and sounds monstrous because that's what he was
Yeah.
giving me.
Well, let me
So
go ahead and play that track. Actually, that's a good idea because that's our boy Pat McGrath apparently, and he's on the drums on this track. This is a song called "The Chase."
yeah, check out on YouTube. They have like a little video along with this, or like a lyric video thing that's cool. It's got a couple thousand views, I think, which for some local dudes is pretty good. It's been out for like literally a few days.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, if they're able to just like get that kind of promotion immediately, that's awesome. And yeah,
Yeah,
this song is apparently very well drummed because it was done by our boy Pat McGrath. Yeah, let's put that on right now. This is Ravenscroft, and this song is called "Chase" right here on Crimson Media Radio.
Through the light of the rising sun, everyone's chasing a loaded gun. Everyone's wasting their lives away. Gonna take my time this time, so I'm gonna make you mine before you know what I've done. Don't waste your time fighting life, chasing
what? And we're back. How about that? Yeah, so we're talking about Pat McGrath. We just kind of cut right in there because we were listening to the track, and yeah, it was really that's cool background on the band right there. So Shawn was telling me a little bit about how the band was, just doing this song as a demo apparently, and then they were getting picked up by somebody pretty big, right?
Well, they're getting looked at by a big management company, but the thing is that they're like, hey man, we just want to. We just want to do a demo. We don't want to get crazy with this one. I'm like, la 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 la. It's like, bloop, bloop, bloop. It's like, yeah. Now, what happens when we spend the time to do this, and you guys work your butts off to make it all good, and then we don't go all the way with it, and then he does what every record exec / manager does, which is disappoint you, and then you need something to sell. What happens then? Like, screw that. Let's go ahead and push this thing further and get a real product out of it. And
right.
So that was kind of like how I always looked at it. They were going and just looking again at demos. So I kind of kept just pushing them, like, come on, little birdies, come on, you can fly this,
right,
a couple eggs down, splattered, and
so this analogy's turning beautiful. Yeah, so they were able to, like, are they working on a full length record at the studio right now?
No, this was like totally like, hey, this is an EP. Now I already recorded 4 or 5 other songs with them for another EP. So I mean, they could join them together.
Right.
There's some kind
assuming the flavor is like the same between the two.
They're not. I mean, they've evolved big time. It's just a much more evolved sound. I mean, I've like pushed the mix and everything else way farther as far as I can pretty much go with it. And so yeah, so that's the thing. Like, you can't go back really. It's
right.
Like
yeah,
ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you can go back, but
yeah, but I mean, why would you?
All the things that made you an ex are still there. So It's the same thing with music. It's like, what are you going to do? Go back to your junior sound? Or are you going to go to your sophomore sound? Or are you going to go to your senior thesis sound?
Yeah, but sometimes that junior sound was a lot better in bed.
Well, yeah, that's true. A lot of
I'm just kidding.
Too. That's why the soft work releases for a lot of bands aren't even as good.
Yeah,
because the freshman tone was better.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's something I've always worried about is like burning out like after the first record. But now that I've like kind of like gotten my feet on the next installment from the Omega Point, I'm like pretty proud of where the sound is going and where everything's kind of evolved. But it had to like it had to start somewhere. It had to start from.
I'm really interested to hear what your new stuff sounds like because I haven't even heard it. So
well, I mean, the only people who have heard it are a few people who have come into the studio right around here and sat on the pink couch and let me play it for them. That's the official name of this, by the way, the Pink Couch.
Pink Couch.
I swear it looked red in the ad, but as soon as it came here pink, like I said, who sends back a couch? That's just unpractical. But yeah, I'll send you the tracks for the Omega Point when I get them down. That's what I'm doing at MI right now, actually, and for all the viewers,
nice.
I'm returning to MI right now, going to the Independent Artist Program. I'm going to be working on the Omega Point follow-up there, and
cool.
Seeking some professional bandmates because I've played with a lot of people, but one of the things I've noticed is you got to have the right mix to at least get on those first few tours, or else you're never going to like really like fly the nest. You're just going to kind of be a band who has a MySpace and whatever, and it's kind of tricky to get the right members who can get you to that live act stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
And so that's why I'm going to MI right now, kind of trying to put together a professional crew, learn a little bit more about, music publishing rights, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to, build the business here, and I figure that's the best way to do it. So
and people hate me for saying this, but, a lot of times the guy that's the right guy for the record is not going to be the right guy to go on tour and vice versa, It's like sometimes it's like, okay, this guy's like the perfect guy to tour with, but he's going to cost me time and energy in the studio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there are other people who are like, you can get them for just like one session. You can get like a good guitar solo out of them really quick, and then like you never want to, or you can't really practically play with them again,
Yeah, where you're lucky to have them come in and lay their flavor on there, and then like you're not going to get that guy sleeping in a van with you on the way to Utah to play a show or something, necessarily,
Exactly. Like originally when I was
working...
Yeah, like when I was working on the Omega Point, I had Manny Molina's from Assuming We Survive, and he,
Yeah.
he was somebody who I was jamming with, but he had kind of told me at the beginning, I'm working on my own project right now, and I played for other people's bands for a long time, so it's just something that
Yeah.
I can't go on tour with you guys, but I listened to the tracks, I made some parts, and I'd like to contribute, and I was like, hell yeah, dude, get in the studio, let's
Yeah.
get that
Yeah.
down, and that was cool too.
Yeah. Yeah. Man.
So everybody has a place. You can't like discard anybody because they're not ready to just hit the road with you like 24/7.
Except for bass players, man. You discard all of those motherfuckers.
Historically that's been the case. Unfortunately, you're totally right. Yeah, poor bass players. I swear.
Well, I'm sure some of the listeners will know this joke, and I know I've told it to you, but what does a bass player use for birth control?
What is
His
that?
personality.
Boom. Bass players, we're sorry for this show, but everybody can take a joke. What the hell,
But the good ones are worth their weight in gold, though, man. I mean, a great bass player that really knows their instrument and is knows knows their place.
Yeah. What's funny about bass players is that a lot of them that I've met are historically like guitar players, but then they decided, like, okay, there's a gig open for me and they need a bassist because nobody plays bass reliably. So then they cross over and then they never come back, and they still sound more like guitar players than bassists. One thing you taught me in the studio is the amount of pop that you have to have in a bass. You know what I mean? You got to have like that rhythmic sound. You were telling me like when you, like we had like a bass player finally come in on my album, you were like, hey, it sounds like a bass player played that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a totally different sound.
It is. Yeah. It makes a total difference when you have someone who understands that
Completely
instrument.
different sound.
Right. Yeah.
Great bass player is like all the difference in the world,
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the other guys.
Yeah. It's funny. I always hear the bass players getting the most shit whenever I go and hang out and talk to people.
They do, and rightfully so. And of course, drummers, I think, are a very neck and neck close second place for biggest shit talked about them.
Yeah, it's funny because I always think that drummers are like sometimes one of the hardest members I've had to find. But now I'm thinking like finding a good guitar player is the hardest thing to find.
Yeah, they used to be a dime a dozen, but apparently somebody bought them all. So it's still hard to find.
They all moved back to
keep it. Find a good one.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to sustain yourself playing guitar. I mean I was about to say they moved back into their parents' basement, but fucking whatever. Sometimes times are tough. I'm not gonna go and blame them because they had to they tried to do their passion project, didn't work out. But that's the thing is I think a lot of
where they live.
I mean, a lot of guitar players kind of gave up the struggle, though. It seems like they were just the band's not going to make it, so whatever. And I feel like the people who really started to shine were the people who are like producers, like singer songwriters, people who are kind of the ones who had the drive to make a project happen, not just someone who was going to play in the band.
Which is funny because it's guitar is like a kind of an aside secondary thing they do to the other stuff, but they're usually the better players. It's weird.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I mean, nowadays I don't know too many people who play guitar great. I mean, I know a few, and unfortunately, a lot of them have written the Omega Point recently. Thank you for everybody who has. But the thing is, it's really hard to find someone who I'm just he's got that good look, he's got that good energy, he's able to probably hit both the tour and the studio, and someone who I can write tracks with later on. Sometimes you got to think about, is this just going to be a group where I hire everybody who goes along with me, or is this really going to be an act where we grow together and kind of start writing things together? So it's important to differentiate the two, I think.
And it sorts itself out in the end because some
ain't that
dude,
the fucking truth, Jesus.
Yeah, because some guy who just joined the band 5 seconds ago, who's I've got the perfect logo for the band for the kick drum. For the front kick drum, and he's like, by the way, I've got ideas how to make these songs better, and and he's just stepping on everyone's dicks in the first 2 seconds he gets in the band.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's bro, it's keep your head down, be quiet, do what needs to be done. Do what needs to be done.
I think that the thing that impresses most people is if you're just you can be 100% functional in the band.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's hey man, if somebody's kicking ass and they are coming up with great ideas and they're co-writing, guess what? They're going to morph into this co-writer, and you're not going to have a big discussion about all that crap. It's just going to happen. And then you could be all right, this guy is a irreplaceable member of the band. But how many times does that really happen?
I mean, when you're describing that just kind of sounds like that guy was can I get your number? 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 Like, shut the fuck up. Like, no, you're not going to get my number. Why are you always talking? Why don't you just fucking try and, like, actually treat me like a human being here, you know? Yeah, and so that's the big thing is like a lot of people do kind of like, you know, step all over their own dicks when they get into like a new project or the band and stuff like that. And honestly, I think actions speak way louder than words. If you just pick up that guitar and kick ass for that project will give you a good recommendation. You might get better projects down the road if this isn't like the one that you're in love with, you know? But there's like, there's a professionality that comes with it. You just got to be able to like, you know, look people in the face, just like tell them, you know, give them sincerity and don't step all over your own dick because trust me, it's not that big. I mean, I'm not speaking for myself here or you or anything, but you know.
No, but that's what it is. And you know what? That, you know, word of
I'm talking
advice,
about dick sizes, by the way.
Oh yeah, huge. 10.5. You know, so yeah, you know the advice that you just basically gave is like, okay, yeah, it works for everything. Like,
yep, absolutely.
There's a bunch of egomaniacs running around that are barely, you know, performing on their instrument to an acceptable level. It's like, don't be that guy, you know.
Yeah.
Be the one that rolls in and actually practice your part before you roll in.
Yeah.
You know, don't even go audition for a band until you've like listened to all their songs and actually learn how to play a couple of them when you roll in. You know, like prepare.
Yep.
You know, everyone else has to. You know, you don't get somebody rolling into a freaking hospital to be a doctor and it's like, I haven't even like went to medical school, man. I think I'm just gonna be good at this, you know. I mean, I've got like a lot of attitude, you know.
I got the feel
I
for
think
it,
I'm
bro.
pretty good looking.
I got the feels.
Yeah, bro. I've got clothes, right? I know how to. I've studied all the things to say. I have all the, you know, all the talking points down.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's a great point because a lot of people, you know, they play the part, but they don't actually step up to the responsibilities of like actually having a band and stuff like that. And another thing that's kind of been breaking my heart lately is that a lot of bands I hear are like really kind of talking shit on all the other like acts in the scene. You know, like I understand if like somebody's not doing something great, but everybody's just instantly like, oh, okay, the guitar player thinks he's all great because he played a solo like this. Oh, the bass player thinks he's all cool because he wore this shirt. You know, they're always just like talking, they're undercutting like everybody else, almost like just to like, you know, build themselves up. And it's just like really pathetic and insecure, and I've seen that like all the time lately. There's a difference between criticizing, you know, like how you're playing to a productive end and just being that snobby fucking asshole who's just always like, you know, holier than thou, sticking his nose up at all the other bands who aren't as good as him. Don't be that guy. Like you said, that guy's a dime a dozen like here and elsewhere, you know.
Yeah, and so, you know, almost every single time when there's some band that like you think it sucks or whatever, there's something good happening. It could be a bass player, which is, you know, very unlikely, but you know, there's like some part in that band that you think sucks that's like actually like usually 99% of the time something awesome's happening. And so like I just try to focus on like, wow, that guy has a really cool way of doing melodic stuff in the guitar.
Yep.
Yeah, the singer's a semitone off. Yeah, the drummer barely hits a snare and hits the cymbals too hard.
Yeah.
But I'll try to focus on the positive stuff because, you know, it's like, I know what's happening. You know, it's like you don't need to rag on somebody on people necessarily. You know.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, like that's just like kind of like a way to like build yourself up. And like you said, I've noticed. I think that's an engineer thing, honestly. Because once I started engineering, you know, like I started noticing, like I looked at projects not just like, oh, okay, this is like a band, this is somebody I might play with, this is like theoretically competition. I was just like, all right, I gotta start listening for parts. You know, I got to listen at that guitar solo, and you really hear, like, above just, like, your own objectivity, like, how is that playing with the rest of the record? How is, like, this contributing to what you're doing? A lot of people, like, don't have that ability to just, like, be
context.
Like, okay, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, you know, this is great, and it could be even better if you, like, understood, like, what it would be to its fullest potential instead of, like, it's a piece of shit. Why are we even bothering with it? You know, it's talking it down. I mean, why would you be that guy in the music scene, in my opinion?
Yeah. But you know, I guess that, you know, all of us have done it. We're all guilty. You know, it's just some people just make a career out of.
Oh boy, I feel like. But here's another point: is I feel like some kids have gotten like success like pretty early in life, and they're just like, you know, I'm invincible, man. Fuck everyone, you know. And then like.
The giant hand of Ra will come down and smack them back down eventually, and I've watched it happen. Yeah. I've watched the big ones get giant slaps down.
Yeah, and you got to stay humble for that reason because you don't know who you're going to see on the way down.
It's like we wouldn't do this if we didn't have ego and we weren't confident in some way. And I think that's like you wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. You know, you just lay down there. You know, it's like the of depression is lack of ego.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, no, you're 100% right because some people also are way too critical and they don't achieve their dreams because of that. They're actually like, talking to themselves negatively about their own projects, their own hopes and desires. I mean, that's not good either. So the ego saves
Yeah,
yourself
so
from
like
hopeless depression. Exactly.
you gotta have a little bit, and then you gotta just realize, it's like, we're lucky to do what we do and what we can do, and there's a million other people that are talented, and so I try to look at it that way, and then
Yeah,
you
I,
know,
I I think that confidence gets thrown around, like the name, just the word confidence, and some people think, oh, that just means cockiness. But really, like
uh,
it's understanding what you're good at, and it's understanding
yeah.
like how to communicate that in a way that's like just like useful and effective, and actually makes people want to seek your services instead of just like like just bragging about yourself for whatever reason.
Yeah,
I
the same people that rag on confidence and ego will spend $600 to go see Madonna. You know what I mean? You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because that's everything that
that's
that they
humble,
claim that.
exactly.
Yeah, and then they go, or Lady Gaga or whatever.
Ugh.
They'll spend hundreds of dollars and go see these ridiculous things that are based completely on show
Yep.
and completely on costume and on plastic wrapped sugar coated everything's and it's just
I've always said Lady Gaga can't be for the little guy if her tickets cost $350 for the very cheapest ones.
wow, yeah, and I'm not ragging on Lady Gaga, it's just that
She had good
so
songs when Red One wrote them.
yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like Lady Gaga, like all that shit. There's like a lot of like there's a lot of like overproduced bullshit, that's for sure. But one of the things that I think is really something that I'm grateful for, anyways, is the fact that rock and roll is like really making a comeback. It seems like because, for example, like we were watching I was watching the Country Music Awards yesterday, and or whenever that was on, and I was just realizing like even they're trying to like kind of like be like full bands again, like a lot of the stuff that's like used to be just like digital production, blah blah blah. Some rock
Yeah.
bands have kind of gone all the way down the production rabbit hole, but a lot of them, I mean, what you're producing, like you got just real instruments that are like I think a real sound is coming back. It's not just like Lady Gaga, it's not just like Madonna, it's not just like vain anymore. People are just wanting like something that's real now.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad because I would just vanish if that stuff goes away, and I get more because that's all I work on. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like
I get it.
it's
Trust me. I'm in a rock
tiny
band.
amounts of rap stuff, tiny amounts. I did just have a rap session come in but everyone played instruments.
That's
So
awesome.
everyone, it was like all engineer producers, right, from LA that came out here to track and
Mhm.
get loops, and everyone there's like a chick who builds Neve consoles playing guitar. Yeah, and then she'd
Dang.
sing, and then this super hood looking black guy that looks like he'd be in a rap is like a crazy like thrash metal aficionado and like shreds on guitar, and like he
Yes.
jumps on guitar and he's playing like Metallica and he's playing all these riffs
Yes.
and it's just like every like stereotype was out the freaking window, like and then
Right.
and then everything just rotated around and everybody just rotated around an instrument, and they got loops, and they got like I don't know, 3 times more stuff done than they thought they were going to get done because they came out here and it was all set up and we had backline and they're playing on the 1963 flip top on the bass amp and
Yeah.
59 tone. They're stoked. And then because they're engineer producer people, like they didn't have to worry about like setup or having the mics there. I had the mics up. They came and listened to it. No one changed anything, which
Yeah.
is funny because it's like 8 or 9 engineers, and like people would listen to guitar tone and go, "Oh, that sounds great, cool, let's play." And they were just stoked to play.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah, I
so
mean,
if I get more rap things like that, where it's like just like everyone's a musician, it's like I'm into that. You know what I mean?
that sounds like the ideal rap session, honestly. I mean,
It was like heaven, man, and everybody had a great time and partied, and it was and got tons of stuff done. So
yeah, I mean, I love good music no matter what. I like good hip hop, absolutely. But the problem is a lot of the sessions that I've done, a lot of people just come in with like MP3s on their CD, and then they just like set up one mic, and then they smoke weed endlessly until they just like can't do anything. There's this one guy who
yeah,
he went into the studio that I used to work at. His name was Kevin something. He was this white guy who was a rapper, and he literally
yeah.
came and he got an envelope and he handed it to my boss and just like walked out, and it was a letter explaining how bad his life was and why he deserves free studio time as a result. I swear to God, like that was what he thought would
Try
be his
me or never.
currency.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
anyways, like I've seen nightmare situations in the hip hop thing, but like you said, a lot of it's sample based, and you can get really creative with that too. So it sounds like these guys are all just picking up instruments, laying down loops, and just making like real sounding tracks out of it.
That's what they're doing, and they had like a couple people show up just for like a few hours. They just wanted to make it out, and they ended up playing. And one of them was like this lady that showed up, and I kind of like, oh, okay, maybe she's a hanger on or whatever, and she's just here hanging out.
Yeah.
No, she jumped on the drum kit. Everybody just started playing random shit. It wasn't random. It was like, but it was all improv, and then the
Right.
two main producer guys that were in the control room were just jumping up and down. Like, dude, this is bitching. We got another thing. It's cool. Whole
Yeah.
other track to work on. So it was like the greatest time. So they're gonna make it like a biannual thing. Come out here twice a year and do it.
And they're just gonna come down here and make cool music out of like the cool riffs that they just put down, huh?
Yep. And they got way more done than they thought they were gonna get done, and they're stoked. But anyways, so
I'm telling you, black people don't do things that aren't cool.
That's right.
Right. You heard it here first. Yeah, that's a great session. I mean, that sounds like really cool. I wanted to play one more track from the tracks that you had sent me here, and I see that we have a few of them. There's the Fornax Chemica, which is the one from New Zealand, right?
Yes, and New Zealand, and one of the guys lives in Australia now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And they flew out to come and see you there, right?
Yeah, they did. They spent 10 days out here while I was mixing, and then we did recalls over Skype. Actually, I put it up over Twitch.
Oh,
so
yeah.
They had real time playback, and then we had chat, and then I had a couple Skype windows up. It was madness. It was awesome.
Wow. So you were just like getting notes on the real time, just like on the web, huh?
Yeah, and so it's like real time recall. Thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
Wow, that's just crazy. And I mean, like, they flew out. Were they just sleeping on your couch? What'd they do?
No, actually, they put themselves up in a hotel, and then I let them stay a couple nights. Just let them sleep in the studio. It's like here's a couple blow up mattresses. They didn't care. They were stoked.
Yeah. I mean, your studio is a pretty cool place. I mean, anybody who's looking to see a really cool recording studio, I'm telling you, check out World Class Audio. You will not regret that. Let me go ahead and play their track, because Fornax Chemica, I was listening to that one earlier, and the Gates of the Gods is what this track is called, and they're great. I mean, this is a really cool track, and I want everyone to hear this one. And then we'll get down to a closing note. Looks like we've been talking for roughly 1 hour, my friend.
Woo!
Woohoo! We got a lot to say.
And we talk a lot.
And we do talk a lot. If you ever come to one of our recording sessions, you'll definitely hear the most ridiculous shit you've ever heard in your life, probably. Your interns are always like, what the fuck are they talking about? I love that shit. All right, here we go with Fornax Chemica, Gates of the Gods, straight from New Zealand and partially Australia on Crimson Media Radio. what was that song? Gates of the Gods. That's right. Fornax Chemica. Check them out. I believe that they have a Facebook and MySpace and all that, or not MySpace probably anymore, but
yeah. MySpace.
it's
They've
been a
got
while.
stone tablet they chisel shit on occasion.
Yeah, exactly. They send smoke
Code of Hammurabi over here,
carrier pigeons and whatnot.
Yeah, carrier pigeons. Yeah.
Smoke signals, all that shit. It's really great. We get to burn stuff every time. It's awesome. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was Fornax Chemica. Check them out on Facebook, and they have a really great sound. I really dug that track. It was very diverse, and Shawn said they had 240 tracks on that session.
Yeah, that's a 240 track song. That song has, I think it had
Oh, when I say session, I meant like the file session.
yeah,
Yeah.
the actual song has 240 tracks.
Yeah,
in the
that's
song.
crazy. That's just insane. I mean, My
the-
Chemical Romance had that for like the Black Parade, I think.
Yeah. This is I've worked on 4 Mars Volta records, and I think we had one song that was over 256 tracks that we couldn't open up on that system because it wouldn't even open it up. So it had a glitch. So we had to import it and submix. We had to import it in new session submix. This one was like right up there with the most stupid Mars Volta track count.
Wow. I mean, Mars Volta has some of the most like diverse, insane sounds I've ever heard. So that's a bold statement.
Yeah, insane. But yeah, so this one had over 60 vocal tracks. The drums, like they would segue between parts, like whole sets of drum tracks. So I think there was like, I don't know, at least 50 drum tracks
Wow.
on the thing. Because
50
it would
drum tracks,
segue.
that's insane.
Yeah, so I had to like submix the 50 down to like 16. You know what I mean, or something, just to get it to be not stupid.
Right.
And then there was about 60 guitar tracks because there'd be different parts for different things, and there'd be multiple mics and multiple stuff for it. So it was like extremely complex.
Are any of those tracks automation?
I mean, there's tons of automation everywhere, but there was like a big submixing, thing that went down to submix the song down to below 100 tracks.
right, exactly. I mean, you still have Pro Tools HD, and you have like some hardware that can do some pretty fantastic buffer rates. But I mean, it still takes like it still takes submixing even at your level is the point.
Yeah, because and it's the same thing like with you get the Chris Loralgi and Tom Loralgi guys.
Yeah.
He'll submix or have his assistant submix down to 48. So that he can pull it up on his console, because he doesn't want to pay. He doesn't want to look at all that.
No, why would you?
It's just too much information to look at. And he's like, all right, give me the gang vocals on 2 tracks. Well, there's 22 tracks of gang vocals. Yeah, great. Submix it onto 2 tracks.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Somebody doesn't like about it. He'll be like, hey, bump up the low end parts, and they'll be doing that, and he'll already be halfway through the mix, But yeah, because you have to break things down into smaller, chunks. And again, this relates to everything in life. If you look at a house that's broken down, and you just look at it and you go, oh, I'll never get that finished. That's just too much work, and then you just won't buy it.
Right.
Yeah, or you never get involved. If you look at it like a person that restores things, they'll say, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get one room nice, and then I'm going to live in that one room.
Yep.
And then I'm going to work my way out into the hallway, and then I'm going to get the kitchen. Actually, if you have a wife, you're going to get the kitchen done first. You're going to get the kitchen done first, because
oh boy,
they get so pissed if that's not nice, So,
yeah, it's true. I know.
That's sexist. Well, then that's reality, because that's just how it is. But and who the hell?
That was a mandatory for my girlfriend when we were moving into this place. She's like, I better have a nice kitchen.
Yeah, who wants a shitty kitchen? So that's
not
the first
wives.
thing you do. So anyway, so with a mix, it's kind of the same way. It's the same way. It's like, I'm going to focus on the stuff that's going to make everything sound better and save time, and get to the important stuff first. Not sit there and focus on bandpass delay for something when there's 60 tracks of unmixed guitars. You know what I mean? It's like, no, I'm going to go pare those things way down first. So
you're saying the point is that, like, you want to get like a pretty decent sum, and then that sum will be way more valuable than having like a million tracks that just have like tons of detail that's pretty much useless.
Yeah, because it just wears you. It just wears you down. Yeah, you get weared down by the minutia.
Yeah.
And and you're it what's kind of is not the greatest thing about DAWs and in general, and it doesn't matter which DAW you're talking about, is your eyeballs consume the most CPU of your brain basically,
Yeah.
and so when you have this screen with a bunch of shit on it, a gajillion tracks all squashed real small. I always laugh when people do that. Um, it becomes impossible to see any levels,
Yep. Yep.
really because it's too small.
Yeah. I mean, you
B,
can't see
it's
sound
like
waves at all.
all right, purple's my vocals. Okay, cool. There's a gajillion purple things squashed together. So every time that you want to look in there and do something, you're gonna like expand that. You're gonna pull out 10 or 20 tracks, look in there, and it collapse back down. Yeah, all right, you could do that. But so the more of those that you can get off your screen, the better.
Yeah.
And the more you can move your screen away from your eyes, and when you're mixing, the better. I have it off to the side when I have everything dialed in, because otherwise your eyes take over. If you
Yeah.
don't believe, look at the porno industry. You know, do
Yeah.
this when the porno is on, right?
Yeah, we're
You know.
we're great experts at that field. I'm just kidding. I'm not.
Yeah, yeah. So visual things take up the most brain power,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And,
Yeah,
and
it's the
so,
most data to process, pretty much. And
yeah, it
having
is.
too much
Yeah,
will freak
it
you out. Is the point?
So when I'm mixing, I put the monitor to the side, and that way there's no visual distraction. I'm just got the speaker straight ahead. I'm just listening,
Yeah.
and but anyways,
That seems like a lot less
well,
daunting. I don't know why I'd never thought of that, honestly. I mean, I've had like sessions that weren't like extremely complicated, but just not putting the tracking session like right in front of your face all the time because it's gonna freak you out, right?
right.
Yeah, or not freak you out, I guess, is the best thing. It's just like sometimes it's an unnecessary distraction from what's actually going on in the sound, and that's what you need to focus on. It's like, use the force, Duke.
Yeah, yeah, and that is the force you need to use, which is your hearing that's not distracted by what you're seeing on the screen.
Yeah.
And but that's like the last step, though. I mean, I'm glued to this damn screen, for all the editing and the tuning and the triggering and the and popping up effects and whatever, and it'll be right there in my face, and I'll kind of da 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 da. But then when it comes to actually like listening and critical recall, or I'm mixing on the console, which I love to do.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll talk about that in just a second.
Yeah, yeah. But anyways, so kind of went off on a tangent, but it's a good tangent.
No, it's a very educational tangent. I hope everybody took that to heart. Though the other thing I was going to say is breaking down the song into chunks is also necessary depending on what kind of producers use which console, right? Because I mean, like for example, you use the Harrison, right?
Yep. Yeah,
Yep.
it's a Harrison 3232C console, 1978. Let's see if we can actually see it.
Oh yeah, go ahead and show that puppy here.
Oh,
Yeah, look at that thing, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a hell of a console right there.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great, and it's kind of funny because a lot of people don't even really know. They don't know what it is, and then I'll say, hey, or they'll ask, hey, what do you? Oh, you have a console? I'm like, yeah, I have a Harrison 3232C. Like, oh, what's that? Do you have any Neve or API or SSL, brah? And then I'll say, have you ever heard of Michael Jackson's Thriller? Like, oh yeah, man, of course, that's a great record, Mike. Okay, that's a Harrison 3232C.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
kind of like, okay, now you've heard what that board sounds like, because that was done. All of it was done on one of those boards. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
when you start mixing stuff like that, you have a 32-track console, right? And so you're able to use 32
yeah.
tracks ideally from the DAW, just feed that straight into the console on a great session, you would say?
Well, it depends on the complexity of the session. But I mean, if something is complex, I'll be submixing a ton of stuff from Pro Tools down to the console. Something that's simple, I can basically just use the console as like a I'll use the console, or sorry, I'll use the DAW for like surgical strikes, like
Yeah.
any super narrow band EQ, which I use a lot for like snares, just to pull out like a honk or whatever,
Yeah, sure.
or vocals. I'll do all that stuff first, and then I'll leave the final EQ, the final color on the EQ the console because it just sounds great.
Yeah,
And
exactly. I was about to say it's like when you think about it, it's like, you do like all the tactical strikes, as you said, on the DAW because you can be way more precise with that kind of stuff. It's much more surgical. And then when you're
yep.
doing the full console, I guess that's like the carpet bombing, if you will. That's just like getting the
Right.
whole
Yeah.
thing.
The carpet or the consoles like the B-52, over Nam. You know what I mean? Just carpet bombing, outside of Hanoi.
Yep, yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
it's a jungle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the digital part is definitely all of your multi-band stuff like the Fab Filter multi-band, Fab Filter, Pro Q2, and I'm sure it'll be a Pro Q3 by next year. But all that stuff is phenomenal. Analog can't compete with that.
Yeah, exactly. And you actually can get like a
uh,
consistent sound across all the instruments when you do the console mixing, right?
Yeah, and it's funny, like the digital stuff's been chasing the tail now of this analog of the summing and the way things meld together, and they're getting close. Like the Slate virtual console stuff is pretty good. I have it.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of in the box mixes too. When stuff needs to be done with like crazy amounts of recall, which I think is the worst idea ever. But sometimes people just like want that level of control, and I kind of know from talking to people. Like I'm mixing a all Spanish record right now.
Sure.
And the guy's like he knows kind of what he wants, but he keeps kind of changing a little bit. So I'm like, it was like I didn't even ask him. I'm like, okay, cool, mixing this in Pro Tools. Like,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know better in that. I mean, in that case, you know better.
Well, I know. Yeah, I know that it would screw me to go otherwise. Oh, so this segues perfectly into another song, which is that For the King's Civil War song. Now that's done on the console completely.
This is done on the This is done on the Harrison then.
Yes, it is. It's done on the Harrison. This is a co-mix that I did with another producer engineer guy.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Alec. It's Alek. And
Alec, like Baldwin.
Alec and I co-mix this. And usually co-mixing doesn't work because if I'm trying to co-mix with somebody that isn't on the same level or doesn't know the same plugins and other stuff, like there's no groove that can happen. So it's like, well, bro, I'm mixing and I'm dragging you behind me with a chain, kind of thing. It's like with Alec, he and I, like, he knows exactly what he wants. I know exactly what I want. And then we're both like kind of bumping into each other a little bit,
Yeah. And then through that refinement process, it ends up a lot better, I'm sure.
It ends up better than I think anything either one of us would have done on our own. But I think because it's such a collaborative thing, and I've talked him out of a bunch of things he thought he wanted, and he talked me out of a bunch of things that's what's happened on Pink Floyd records and all these other records too.
Yeah.
Like the guy, one guy wanted reverb, the other guy wanted it really dry, and they would like battle it out, sneak in, and turn the faders up and down overnight and shit. It's like so we're like doing that shit on the fly, and it's fucking awesome because I've been wanting to like work with someone like that. It just hasn't happened,
Yeah, I mean,
it's.
I don't want to flatter you too much, but honestly, when I started working with you, I got a very similar feeling. Like, I was suddenly like, hey, here's someone who I'm actually learning from, and that's a very beneficial thing. Some people don't have like the confidence to step up to somebody who might know a little bit more than them, who might actually be willing to tell them they're wrong and might actually help you grow as a human being, get red pilled a little bit,
Yeah, and we're both doing that to each other the whole time, and it's just awesome. And what's funny is this guy works on like tons of like urban, quote unquote urban stuff, tons of rap, right, and hip hop, and so this band is like a total departure from that. It's Americana, it's Southern rock, it's like Neil Young, Tom Petty, blah 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 mixed together.
Badass.
And so it's like, yeah, it's super rad, dude. Like, yeah, you're gonna love it. So what? Yeah,
let's pull that one out.
Early morning fog, spit-filled lawn. My musket ain't clean and my bondit's rust, and I would pray to God
one like a Viagra. Now
Be in a trench with the others who survived.
called For the
To the end, towards the light. I keep telling myself it'll be alright, but tonight, will you dance with me on a ship that's bound for heaven, where the band will never finish playing a song that'll touch a million souls? When hearts were broken and loved ones falling, the band kept playing on. See the world through dying eyes. Remember all of the things I'd forgotten. This is hell. When did we stop trying? The sunset's past and there's nothing but silence. Mournful hymn, it feels like I'm rising. Don't look back. It's the end of the violence. I keep telling myself it'll be alright, but tonight, when you dance with me on a ship that's bound for heaven, where the band will never finish playing a song that'll touch a million souls. When hearts were broken and loved ones falling, the band kept playing on.
Woo for the king. And that was our interview with Shawn Sullivan tonight. Sorry about that last little bit. It was a part where Shawn was talking about a band that I forgot to add on the playlist. Oops, but I got him in at the last minute. Gotcha. So Shawn can be found at World Class Audio. That is worldclassaudio.com. Check them out at World Class Audio on Facebook. You'll see a picture of Shawn's beautiful mug right there as soon as you look it up. And check out every band that was on tonight's show, including Serena Foster, the Short-Necked Giraffes, Echo Muse, and then we also had Ravenscroft. Then we had this one band that they always play, Pharynx. I always have to look at it. Fornax Chemica, there we go. And last but not least, we had For the King. And we started off with Naked and Unashamed. That is the complete playlist. Thanks a lot, guys. This has been Crimson Media Radio 005. Next week, we are actually actively looking for a guest because we thought that we were going to be able to get Chase to come in the studio. But Chase is waiting to finish his record with the Butcher Babies, so his record will be out soon, and then we'll be able to get him in the studio. But if one of you guys wants to come in and do an interview on the show, please let me know. You can reach me at sleevetrock@gmail.com. I'm happy to answer all of your questions, and I'd love to hear from you if you want to sit down for an interview on the show. That's it for tonight. Thanks a lot, guys. I think that this has been one of the most successful shows we've done so far. I'm looking at the live cast. We had a great audience tonight. Spectacular. About 150 people were watching at the peak. That's phenomenal, guys. I really appreciate that. I'm going to keep on doing this every Sunday. Hopefully this is your new favorite Sunday show. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Crimson Media Radio every Sunday here at 6 p.m. You can follow us on Twitter at Crimson Media ENT. And you can also find us at Facebook, Crimson Media Entertainment. If you haven't liked the page, like the page, and please follow us. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next Sunday.